Number 77 on our AFI 100 Years, 100 Movies 10th Anniversary Edition list is 1976's All the President's Men. In 1972, a reporter by the name of Bob Woodward, played amazingly by big screen icon Robert Redford, uncovers what seems to be nothing more than a break-in at the Democratic National Party's main headquarters. When Woodward sees the level of legal strength already defending the case, he decides to dig deeper. Names of Republican Party members and big-time donors are uncovered. Woodward thinks this is the story, and the Washington Post is ready to run with it. Carl Bernstein, played by Dustin Hoffman at the height of his talent, gets involved before it goes to print. He kind of rubs Woodward the wrong way at first, but the two end up becoming closer and closer as the case gets bigger and bigger and that rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper. The trail leads all the way to the White House and the head of the American government. What they find is known to history as Watergate, and these two reporters are directly linked to the resignation of Richard Nixon. Now, movies like this are what best of lists are made for. An iconic setting, a major point in our history, legendary actors giving career-defining performances. Director Alan Pakula isn't a name as big as, say, Spielberg, but this movie alone proves that he is a man of incredible talents. The movie is based on the book by the same name. The novel was written in 1974 by the real-life Woodward and Bernstein. The screenplay was adapted by writing legend William Goldman. Now, if you're like me, you are absolutely sick to death of hearing about politics at this point. I was never all that politically minded to begin with. All the President's Men is interesting for so many reasons beyond politics, and it even makes that aspect of the storytelling incredibly interesting. You can't fully put politics aside, but you don't need to make a stance on this one. This is history. What happened, happened. Of course, there is the inevitable Hollywoodization of the whole ordeal, but nothing egregious has changed and no facts were skewed to tell an opinion side of this. All the President's Men, at this point, is an idyllic look at a time when journalism meant something and had integrity. The reporters were held to facts, fact-checking and vetting their sources. They did the grunt work to break the story, and it wasn't based on a sensationalized headline to get some ad clicks. The extra work they had to do made it all worth it given the stakes of the situation. Every time the characters have a discussion about the ramifications of getting it wrong, you're equally energized and disappointed. Energized for the movie, plot, and characters, but disappointed at how far things have fallen in what we call the age of information. Putting my soapbox away, the performances of Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman must be talked about. If you don't want to watch this movie for any other reason, it's worth it for these two powerhouse actors standing shoulder to shoulder and acting their asses off. Redford makes natural acting feel effortless. The natural presence and charisma he brings to the screen is just part of his monumental performance as Woodward. Redford was finishing his duties on The Candidate when he got interested in Watergate. He did a small version of his own investigation into the scandal. He started asking people to know, reading reports, journals, and whatever research information he could get his hands on. From the real Woodward and Bernstein. His fascination took hold, and he bought the rights to the book for $450,000. He planned on producing the movie with a $5 million budget. Ben Bradlee, the executive editor at the Washington Post, agreed to sell the rights to Redford. He knew eventually that Hollywood was going to make a movie about this, and he wanted to do his best to have some hand in it, to do his best to sway the movie with facts rather than sensationalism. There's that idyllic look I was talking about. Redford brought William Goldman on board to write the script, and problems started to pop up almost immediately. Goldman decided to throw out the entire second half of the novel. He felt this would be a more concise story, focusing on just the events leading up. Woodward was on board with the adaptation, and he helped when he could, but Bernstein, in the beginning, was the total opposite. Goldman does his job. He delivers the first draft, and Warner Brothers green-lights the movie. Redford read that draft, the very one that got him funding, and he hated it. He asked Bernstein and his then-girlfriend, Nora Ephron, who is a famous writer if you don't know, for some tips. They ended up doing their own draft, fully. Redford passed that draft on to Goldman. Goldman was incensed that he would do this. He felt that the three of them overstepped in a massive way going behind his back. He was actually quoted as saying that the move by the three was a gutless betrayal. Redford wasn't happy with the Bernstein-Ephron draft either. He described it as sophomoric, and it really made Bernstein larger than life in a lot of Hollywood ways. There's actually one thing where Hoffman, playing Bernstein, kind of gets a one-over on a secretary and sneaks into an office, which was a Hollywood sensationalized that made it through from that draft. Now, there's all these claims going around that Redford and the newly hired director, Pecula, spent days and days poring over versions and making adjustments and rewriting the script, but there are other claims that say that Goldman slaved over the script himself until everyone was satisfied. Even as recently as 2011, these stories were in conflict. Regardless of the pissing matches and infighting, the finished result is phenomenal. One of the main reasons for this is that everyone on the production side of the script was held to a high standard. No facts were admitted without proper vetting, just like proper journalism. Al Pacino was originally considered to play Bernstein. Redford quickly changed his mind and offered the role to Hoffman instead. Actually, a little bit of egoing gets involved here, but it's kind of justified. Redford felt that casting himself as one of the leads would unbalance the movie. He knew the level of star he was. When he decided on Hoffman to balance the scales, he approached his future co-star to Nick's game and flat out offered him the role right there on the spot. Hoffman did the homework as well. He and Redford would spend weeks in the Washington Post offices learning the lingo and the heartbeat of journalism, learning the day-to-day of the reporters and how they went about doing things. The two actors even memorized the other's role fully, every last line. They did this intentionally so they could interrupt each other and finish each other's characters' thoughts. It brought the characters closer on screen and the actors closer off screen. It also had the ripple effect of really unsettling their co-stars, which made for some very authentic reactions that made it into the final cut of the movie. All the President's Men ended up with an ultimate budget of $8.5 million, a good amount higher than Redford's originally planned $5 million. The higher budget was no problem. The movie would go on to gross $70.6 million. This was all raised domestically, which makes sense given the subject matter. Critics loved the movie as well as the audiences. All the President's Men would go on to win 4 Academy Awards. Best Supporting Actor for Jason Robards, Best Adapted Screenplay for William Goldman, Set Decoration and Sound. How neither Redford or Hoffman took home a trophy is beyond me. The Academy Awards isn't really the best litmus test for quality, but you don't need another soapbox session from me. That's going to do it for 1976's All the President's Men. Next up on our list is 1994's Forest Gump. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscriptions really help us grow our audience. The AFI countdown videos hit a week early for our patrons on Patreon. Tiers start at only $1 a month, and you get multiple monthly bonus shows for it. Be sure to listen to So Is Your Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. SoIsYourPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments or leave us something on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. Thanks.